So we're going to do a little group activity. I'm going to pass out to you guys this little packet of pictures. And I want you to take the paper clip off and then just kind of mix them all up. So they're not in any particular order. Okay, now I want you to put them in an order. There's no right or wrong answer, just kind of arrange them in a way that tells the story. Have a story, I guess, made from those cards? Okay, well, let's go around the room and just talk about what you made. So we'll start with Eric. Tell us about your story.
In the first one, all these little guys are just hanging out outside their holes in this.
Show everybody which one you picked for the first one.
Oasis. And the second one, they're still just hanging out. There are a lot of them climb trees, and they're just up there hanging out. And then in this third one, this bird guy comes in, and he's looking pretty hungry. And the fourth one, he's still coming in. These little guys, these couple seem to be diving down here. They're trying to get away. But we find out that not all of them got away. In fact, apparently there was another bird we didn't see. And looks like they got 4 of them. Each bird has 2 talons that can pick up 2 of the little guys.
Swoop down to eat them?
Well, we haven't seen them eat them yet.
Okay, will you capture them?
Probably will eat them eventually.
Okay, Vicki, tell us about your story.
My story begins with the rhino-looking things on the tree, and then there are fox-looking animals on the bottom. So there are 4 fox animals on the floor, and then there are 3 on the tree and 1 rhino thing on the hanging on the tree.
So you have 2 different groups of animals.
Yes,
Yours.
there are 2 different ones. The darker animals and the lighter colored animals.
Cool. What happens next?
And then there's a bird coming trying to attack the darker animal at the tree. So the other darker animals come down to the floor and the other fox animals go into their holes. And then the darker ones that stayed on the tree, the eagles were selecting the darker animals, and the fox animals go into their holes. And all the darker ones are gone now. The eagle comes to go for the dark animals, and they're not there anymore. And the fox animals are hiding. They were hiding in the holes, so they're happy. And eventually, there are only the lighter colored animals, so they overbred, and there are a bunch of those ones.
Good job, Vicki. So what about Brian and Teresa? What did you guys decide? You can kind of, if yours is the same, you can share as a group if you want. Interesting. Well, then share yours.
Mine starts off with there's one that was scattered around in the summer in the trees, and I noticed that the darker ones go up into the trees, and the light ones down on the ground. Then I have the bird coming in and swooping down. Then I've got another bird also coming in, and then picking off all these darker ones that were up in and around the trees, these lighter ones in their holes were safe, then there's no more darker ones. I guess these ones presumably were left to breed or something, and they're all over the place. And then this bird comes again, and the only ones that are seen now, the ones that are still in the holes, all the other ones are out and exposed and picked off. And this bird has this crazy, confused looking thing on top of his head. He doesn't know what's hanging out, nothing's out, and he's a pluck for him.
Interesting. Teresa, what was the difference between yours and Brian's?
The only difference between mine and his was the last two. For me, I had the bird kind of swooped in, but only saw the white ones, and so we didn't take any of them, and then they grew and multiplied and were happy all by themselves.
Perfect. What about you, Lauren? Was yours different than anybody's?
Yes, I think mine was different than everyone.
Perfect. Share us what yours was.
I started out with a lot of the little guys in the holes and on the island, and then somehow the darker ones showed up that were in the trees, and there was only a couple holes, and the bird came back to one, and then more dark ones grew up into the trees, and then two birds came up because there was a lot of trees made on, and then the bird came back, and there was none left in the trees, and there was only a couple left in the holes.
Perfect. Okay, everybody hold up the one with the guys in the trees, the guys on the ground without the bird. Okay, so let's look at that one. That would be the first one of the sequence. So what's unique about that scene right there? What are your observations? I know Vicki said that they were two different groups of animals. What else? What about where they live?
Two different niches in terms of on the ground and holes versus in the trees.
What else about their little environment?
Tails and their tails. What about the environment?
Yeah,
They're
the big picture. Exactly, they're on an island. So sometimes when things are on islands, they end up isolated from other communities or populations of animals. So things can kind of happen, I guess, uniquely there as opposed to somewhere else. And so we're going to hold on to that idea. We're going to back up a bit, and I'm going to tell you how this all kind of fits into evolution. So, a long time ago, like the 1800s, there were these two naturalists. We have Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace. And these guys spent a lot of time traveling around the world, not together. These were two separate travels, and basically just observing things. They had a lot of free time, so these guys sat around, made observations of things around them. And these guys are important because what we know about species and how they originated came from these guys. And what they developed was this idea that species changed over time, that certain things would kind of cause animals to change. And these theories, although a lot of times you would probably have heard of Darwin is given most of the credit, but they did this together. They were independently coming up with this, but Darwin's kind of one that got credit. But nowadays we're starting to recognize both of them. So remember, both of these developed these theories about how animals change over time. And you see that back then, this was a huge deal because everybody believed that God created everything. And He created everything in a specific mold. Like if you were created as a human, you stayed a human your whole life, that was great. If you were one of those little guys in the tree, you were that your whole life. Things never changed. So these two men's idea that species could change was a huge, huge deal back then. And one of their theories was called natural selection. And natural selection is a process that results in the survival and reproductive success of individuals or groups best adjusted to their environment, and that leads to the perpetuation of genetic qualities best suited to that particular environment. Isn't that clear? Does anyone want to take a stab at what that means? Yes, Brian.
The individuals that were born with the best traits had the best chance to survive. So that doesn't necessarily mean they did, but they're over they're more likely to, by probability, they reproduce in greater numbers than those who are more poorly adapted to their environments.
Perfect. So what you're saying is that all organisms do not have an equal chance of survival. So what could be some of these factors that would lead to organisms not all having the same chance? What could be their differences? And I want you to kind of maybe think about it and make a little list, and I'm going to have you talk to your partner about it in a couple minutes. So make a list of some things, like maybe differences animals have or other outside factors of things that could influence who lives or who dies. And for the sake of time, we're not going to do that. And in a real classroom, basically, we would come up with these lists. And so to summarize what you guys wrote down, we have like shelter, food, environmental factors that can affect this, maybe disease. And also, some animals will develop different behavioral differences or adaptations to help them survive in their environments. So in a nutshell, the natural selection is basically survival of the fittest. And what fittest means is those organisms that have these factors that work in their favor. And these can be behaviors that they have or do, or maybe some structural changes that occur that will help them fit better into their environment. And in turn, those that are not well suited for the environment, probably not going to make it. So, I was talking about changes that these animals can undergo, which kind of leads into the next theory that Darwin and Wallace came up, which was
Survival of the fittest.
and those changes, how do we describe those changes? It's a big word we use, evolution. That's Darwin and Wallace is who came up with evolution. They are the ones that really just kind of had this original idea and thought, hey, maybe things weren't created in a specific image, that maybe things change. And so that change occurs over a long, long, long period of time. And another part of their theory was that organisms all kind of evolved from a few primitive species. So these guys were pretty scandalous back in the day thinking about this, because everybody believed in creation. And I know nowadays we have people that are still kind of divided on the issue, but I'm just here today giving you some facts about evolution. And then we would go.